Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
1. Introduction. Important leaders from 7 countries are having a big meeting. This meeting is called the G7 Summit. It is happening in Canada. The leaders are talking about many things that are important for the world. At the same time, far away in the Middle East, a serious problem is happening. 2 countries, Israel and Iran, are fighting. They are attacking each other. This fighting has been happening for some days now. It is a dangerous situation. Suddenly, there is news from the United States. The White House, where the American president lives and works, makes an announcement. This announcement is surprising. It is about the President of the United States, President Trump. The White House says that President Trump is leaving the G7 meeting in Canada. He will go back to Washington. The reason is the fighting in the Middle East. The White House says the president needs to work on this important problem. This decision is very important. It will affect the meeting in Canada. It will also affect the situation in the Middle East. People in many countries are watching. They want to know what President Trump will do. His decision changes things. The world is waiting to see what happens next. 2. The president goes home. The White House press secretary, her name is Caroline Leavitt, spoke to people on Monday evening. She made an important announcement about President Trump. She said that the president was leaving the G7 summit early. The meeting was happening in Canada. President Trump was going back home to Washington, D.C. The official reason for his early departure was serious. She said the president needed to give his attention to many important matters. The most important matter was the difficult situation in the Middle East. There was a crisis happening there at that time. For 5 days in a row, 2 countries, Israel and Iran, were fighting. They were attacking each other with military force. Israel was sending attacks to hit places inside Iran. They were targeting buildings and other important sites. Some of these attacks were in Tehran, which is the capital city of Iran. Reports said Israel was hitting important places related to Iran's security leaders. Iran was also attacking Israel. They were firing many missiles towards Israel. People in Israel heard loud sirens. The sirens were a warning that missiles were coming. News reports said that some of these missiles hit places in Israel. The fighting between the 2 countries was becoming more dangerous every day. While President Trump was leaving the G7 meeting, he also used the internet to share his thoughts. He has a social media platform where he writes messages. It is called Truth Social. He wrote a message specifically about Iran. In his message, President Trump said that Iran should have agreed to a nuclear deal with him when he offered it in the past. He believed they made a mistake by not signing the deal. He also wrote a very strong and surprising message to the people who live in Tehran. He told everyone living there that they should leave the city. Tehran is a very big city. Millions of people live there, maybe 10 million people or more. Telling everyone to leave is a very big statement. President Trump's decision to leave the G7 meeting early was a significant event. It meant that he was not present at the main meeting table with the other leaders from the world's most powerful countries. Many of these leaders had hoped to speak with President Trump personally about global issues. His absence from the meeting meant that some important discussions would be different. For example, talking about new rules or punishments for other countries like Russia might be less strong or effective without the American president taking part. So this chapter tells us about President Trump going home early. The official reason was to deal with the crisis in the Middle East. At the same time, he sent a clear and direct message about the situation using his social media. His early departure focused attention on the growing conflict and showed where his priorities were. 3. An empty chair at the table. The G7 summit continued in Canada, but it felt different. An important person was missing from the main table. President Trump had left early. Many world leaders who were there felt disappointed. They had traveled to this meeting hoping to have important conversations with the American president. Now, that chance was gone. One leader who was particularly upset was President Zelensky of Ukraine. Ukraine is facing a difficult conflict with Russia. President Zelensky had a strong hope for this summit. He wanted it to be a key opportunity to speak directly with President Trump. His goal was to encourage President Trump to increase pressure on Russia. President Zelensky believed that the United States was not currently doing enough to help Ukraine and stop Russia. He thought that if President Trump listened to him and talked with other European leaders at the summit, it might help change his position. Maybe President Trump would then agree that Russia was not changing its actions and that stronger measures were needed, like more sanctions. Even though President Trump was gone, the leaders still had discussions about sanctions against Russia. Sanctions are steps taken by countries to make another country stop certain actions, often by limiting trade or money. There was talk about new sanctions that some countries from Europe and Canada might announce. They were also discussing ways to reduce the price of oil that Russia sells on the world market. This would hurt Russia's economy. However, these discussions felt weaker without President Trump. The United States is a very big and powerful country. Its involvement makes sanctions much stronger. If the American government is not part of the talks about sanctions, or if they do not help to put them into effect, the sanctions will naturally be less powerful. The meeting felt incomplete, like a key part of the group was missing. It was a conversation happening with only some of the important voices, not all of them. The empty chair at the table was a clear sign of President Trump's absence and the effect it had on the summit's work. The leaders continued their work, but the absence of the United States president cast a shadow over the proceedings. His early departure meant that the opportunity to get direct support from the U.S. for issues like strengthening actions against Russia was lost. The other leaders had to adapt their plans. They knew that without the full participation of the United States, some important decisions might not have the same impact or strength. The G7 summit is meant to bring together the leaders of the world's largest economies to discuss global problems. With one of the most significant leaders gone, the meeting felt less powerful and the future steps seemed less certain. The empty chair was more than just a space. It represented the missing influence of the United States at a critical moment for international cooperation and addressing global conflicts. 4. The war gets worse. The fighting between Israel and Iran continued. This conflict had been happening for 5 days now. Every day, the situation felt more dangerous. Israel was attacking places in Iran. The Israeli army said they were hitting important targets in Iran's main city, the capital, Tehran. They said they were targeting people in charge of security. Videos were shown that Israel said proved their attacks. These videos reportedly showed destruction, including military planes and vehicles. Israel's prime minister said that the military campaign would continue. This suggested that the fighting was not going to stop soon. He said that they were successfully damaging parts of Iran's military programs. In return, Iran was fighting back. Iran was sending many missiles towards Israel. People in Israel heard sirens warning them of incoming attacks. There were reports of explosions in different parts of Israel. Sometimes these missiles hit areas inside the country. There were attacks during the day and also during the night. Some attacks were less strong than others, but the danger was still there. In Tehran, the capital of Iran, people also heard explosions. Reports said that Israel was still carrying out attacks there. It was difficult to know exactly what was happening inside Iran. The back-and-forth attacks made the situation very serious. Both sides were hitting targets in the other country. The number of days with fighting kept growing. The war was getting worse. Every day brought new attacks and more danger for the people in both countries. The conflict was not ending. Instead, it was becoming more intense. The world watched as the fighting continued for a fifth day with no sign of stopping. 5. News from the conflict zone. Reporters are in the places where the conflict is happening. They are trying to tell the world what they see and hear. One reporter is in Jerusalem, the capital city of Israel. It is morning there just after 9 o'clock. Suddenly, sirens sound again. These are warning sirens. They tell people that missiles or rockets are coming. People must go to safe places. This is another wave of attacks from Iran. It happened about 20 minutes before the reporter spoke. There is a report that one attack hit a place in central Israel. The Israeli government does not want the exact location to be reported. They want to keep it secret for security reasons. These attacks in the morning followed attacks that happened during the night. There were 2 waves of missiles from Iran during the night. Iran is sending these missiles as a response to Israel's actions. Israel has been attacking targets in Iran. The attacks during the night were not as strong as on some previous nights. There were no reports that missiles hit anything directly. There were also no reports that anyone was hurt or killed during the night attacks in Israel. However, the fighting is happening on both sides. In Iran, there are reports of more explosions. These explosions are in Tehran, the capital city. Israel is continuing its attacks on targets in Tehran and other places in Iran. It is very difficult for reporters and news organizations outside Iran to know exactly what is happening inside the country. Getting clear information is hard, but there are indications from the Israeli side. The authorities in Israel say that this military campaign will probably continue for some time. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, spoke about the situation recently. He said that Israel has damaged some of Iran's important military programs, like their plans for nuclear materials and missiles. But the Prime Minister also said that Israel's military needs more time to finish the job. He said the campaign would likely continue for quite some time. This message suggests that the conflict is far from over. The attacks and responses are expected to go on. People in both countries and around the world are watching closely. They want to know when this dangerous fighting will stop. The situation remains very serious in the conflict zone. Every day brings new attacks and new reports from the ground. Reporters continue to share what they can, but the full picture is not always clear, especially from inside Iran. The sound of sirens is a part of life now in some areas. Explosions are heard in others. This is the reality of the conflict. 6. What does America want? Many people watched President Trump's actions. He left the big meeting early. He made strong statements about the conflict. People asked, why did he do this? What does America want? Experts started to think about his reasons. One expert shared his ideas. He believes President Trump is putting pressure on Iran. Pressure means trying to make someone do what you want without fighting a big war. The expert thinks President Trump is not starting a war now. Instead, he is showing Iran how much power America has. He wants Iran to see that America is much stronger than Iran. He thinks President Trump is sending a message. The message is, if the fighting continues, Iran will lose. America has much more power and strength. The expert believes the main goal is to make Iran stop fighting. The goal is to make Iran agree to talk. President Trump wants Iran to agree to make important changes. This could mean stopping their missile programs or stopping support for certain groups. The expert said America could still use its military later, but for now, the focus seems to be on using pressure. President Trump's actions are a way to push Iran very hard. He wants to force them to stop the war. He wants to force them to come to the talking table. Some people think Iran is looking for a way to end the war now. They see that Israel's army is very strong. The fighting is difficult for Iran. Maybe they are ready to talk because of the pressure. But the big question is, what will America ask for in these talks? What conditions will America put on Iran? Will Iran agree to these conditions? The expert says it is hard to know the answer right now. The world is waiting to see what happens next. President Trump's actions have changed the situation. He is using pressure to try and get what America wants. He wants Iran to stop fighting. He wants Iran to agree to talk and make changes. This is one way to understand America's goal now. It is a plan to use power and pressure. It is not necessarily a direct move to start a large war, but the chance of war is still real. It depends on how Iran reacts to the pressure. Will they agree to talk? Will they stop fighting? Or will they fight back harder? The expert believes the pressure is working. He thinks Iran is showing signs of wanting to end the war. But the final result is not clear. What America wants seems to be peace, but peace on America's terms. This is by showing great power and demanding changes. It is a strategy of pressure. 7. Life in the capital city. Life in Tehran, the capital city of Iran, is not easy at this time. The conflict with Israel continues. People in the city hear about attacks happening. There are reports of explosions in some areas. This makes the people feel very scared and worried. News comes that civilian areas have been hit. Some people have been hurt or killed. This causes anger and fear among the people living in the city. They feel panic because of the danger. The President of the United States, President Trump, sent a message. He said that everyone should leave Tehran. However, Tehran is a very large city. More than 10 million people live there. It is impossible for so many people to leave their homes and the city quickly. The government of Iran seems to be looking for a way to end the fighting. Some officials have sent signals that they want the war to stop. They see that Israel has a stronger military. For the people of Tehran, daily life is about staying safe. They are focused on surviving the attacks. They are not thinking about protesting against the government now. It is hard to think about other things when you are worried about bombs and your safety. People need protection and places to hide. The current situation makes it difficult for people to do anything except try to live through the day. The focus is on survival for the millions of people in the capital city. 8. What happens next? The meeting of important leaders in Canada continued, but the leader of the United States was not there. President Trump had left early, going back home. The other leaders talked and discussed, but something felt missing. Without the American president, some conversations were difficult. The world watched the news thinking about two main things. First, the G7 meeting. What would happen there now? Would the countries agree on important things? Would they make big decisions without the United States? It was hard to say. The meeting felt different. It continued, but the empty chair was a reminder of the big changes happening. Second, the war in the Middle East. The fighting between Israel and Iran was still a big problem. Attacks continued. People were scared. The situation was very dangerous. Many people believed that what happened next in the war depended on one country, the United States. Everyone was waiting. They were waiting to see what President Trump would do. There were two main possibilities. Would the United States use its military power? Would American soldiers or planes become part of the fighting? This would make the war much bigger and more serious. Many people worried about this. Or would President Trump try a different way? Would he try to stop the fighting with words? Would he offer a way for the countries to talk? Could he help find a path to peace? This was the other possibility people hoped for, but nobody knew the answer. President Trump had gone back to Washington. He had important matters to think about, the White House said. But what were those matters? What decision would he make? The world was in a time of great uncertainty. The future felt unclear. The leaders at the G7 did not know. The people living in the Middle East did not know. Everyone was just waiting to see what would happen next.